This is not CGI. Forget AI hallucinations. You are looking at the raw, impossible reality of your own planet. We have mapped the surface of Mars in astonishing detail, yet we remain strangers to the worlds hiding beneath our feet. From the electric blue scars of the desert to the crystal cathedrals buried in darkness, we will journey through landscapes shaped by fire, frozen by time, and built by hands we can no longer name. We scan the heavens for extraterrestrials, only to realize we might be the ones out of place. Brace yourself. These are the 30 most alien places on Earth. The plains of South Dakota abruptly collapse into a jagged maze of siltstone and shale. Badlands National Park covers 244,000 acres of sharply eroded buttes and pinnacles formed by depositional cycles starting 75 million years ago. The distinct color bands reveal the history of the Western Interior Seaway and the subsequent rise of the Rocky Mountains. Iron oxides produce the red hues, while volcanic ash from the west settled into gray and white layers during the Oligocene epoch. This region contains one of the world's richest fossil beds, preserving remains of three-toed horses, saber-toothed cats, and ancient rhinoceroses. The Lakota people name this region Mako Sika, or Badlands, due to the extreme temperatures and the lack of potable water. Erosion continues at a rate of 1 inch per year, ensuring the landscape remains in a state of constant, violent transformation. Rising from the sea of sand, Mount Bromo stands as a testament to the volatile nature of the Pacific Ring of Fire. The volcano reaches an elevation of 7,641 feet, or 2,329 meters, and sits within the massive Tenga caldera. Unlike its lush green surroundings, the caldera floor is a barren expanse of gray volcanic ash. Each year, the Tengarese people perform the Yajna Kasada ritual, traveling to the crater rim to throw offerings of fruit, livestock, and money into the steaming abyss. This tradition honors a 15th century legend involving a princess and a mountain god. The air at the summit smells of concentrated sulfur, and the constant roar from the vent mimics the sound of a jet engine. Seismologists monitor the site 24 hours a day as Bromo erupts frequently, reshaping the crater's interior and covering the surrounding villages in layers of mineral-rich dust. Socotra Island remained detached from mainland Africa for 18 million years, creating a biological vacuum. This isolation resulted in an ecosystem where 37% of plant species exist nowhere else on the planet. The most iconic is the dragon's blood tree, or Dracaena kinnabari, which features a dense, umbrella-shaped canopy designed to capture moisture from sea mists. Its red sap was highly valued in the ancient world as a dye and a medicinal resin. Sharing the limestone cliffs with the dragon blood trees are the desert roses, also known as bottle trees. These plants possess massive bulbous trunks that store gallons of water, allowing them to bloom with vibrant pink flowers even in the middle of a blistering drought. Their distorted shapes make the highlands look like a garden designed for a different gravity. The island's topography consists of narrow coastal plains and limestone plateaus riddled with cave systems that stretch for miles. Some of these caves house endemic fauna that has evolved in total darkness. Because the island sits at the junction of the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, its climate is harsh, characterized by extreme heat and seasonal monsoon winds that tilt the local flora in a permanent northern direction. In the middle of the red desert of Moab, Massive geometric shapes of electric blue disrupt the landscape. These are the potash evaporation pools managed by Intrepid Potash. The company pumps water from the Colorado River deep underground to dissolve minerals from a salt deposit lying 3,000 feet, or 900 meters, below the surface. This brine is then pumped into these expansive, shallow ponds. The vibrant blue color comes from an added dye that accelerates the absorption of solar energy, speeding up the evaporation process. Over 300 days of sunshine per year allow the water to vanish, leaving behind white crystals of potassium chloride. The contrast between the artificial blue water and the natural orange sandstone creates a visual paradox that is visible from commercial aircraft and low Earth orbit. It takes nearly 6 months for a pond to dry completely, revealing a shimmering mineral crust that is harvested for industrial fertilizer. Paisupok Lake is a natural optical illusion. Located in the Banggai Islands, its name translates to black water in the local dialect, referring to the deep, obsidian-like appearance of the lake when viewed from a distance. However, as the observer approaches, the water reveals a crystalline blue clarity so intense it seems backlit. This clarity is the result of limestone filtration through the surrounding karst hills, which removes nearly all organic sediment. Fallen trees remain perfectly preserved on the lake floor, visible through 30 feet or 10 meters of water. The lake is fed by underground springs, maintaining a constant temperature and a high mineral content that prevents the overgrowth of algae. Local folklore suggests the lake was formed by a falling star, though geological data confirms it as a sinkhole filled by the local aquifer. The summit of Mount Kelimutu features 3 crater lakes that independently change color without warning. One lake may be turquoise, another deep red, and the third a dark chocolate brown, only to shift to green or black months later. This phenomenon is not seasonal. It is the result of chemical reactions between volcanic gases and the mineral content of the water. Each lake has a different oxidative state, influenced by the subsurface vents that release sulfur dioxide and hydrogen chloride. The Leo people believe the lakes are the resting places of departed souls, with the color indicating the age and character of the deceased. Tiwu Atabupu is reserved for the spirits of the old, Tiwu Ko'o Whainua Muri for the young, and Tiwu Atapolo for the wicked. At an elevation of 5,300 feet, or 1,600 meters, the lakes remain shrouded in thick mountain fog for much of the day. $80 million years ago, the Farafra Depression was the floor of the Tethys Ocean. Today, it is a landscape of chalk-white pillars and mushroom-shaped rock formations known as the White Desert. These structures were carved by Aeolian erosion, where wind-driven sand grinds down the softer limestone, leaving behind the denser calcium carbonate cores. Some formations stand over 15 feet or 4 meters, tall, resembling giant sculptures in an open-air museum. Small marine fossils and coral remnants are still embedded in the rocks, providing a physical record of the ancient sea. At night, the desert reflects moonlight so intensely that the ground appears to be covered in snow. The temperature fluctuates violently here, reaching over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the day and dropping toward freezing after sunset. This cycle of heating and cooling causes the rock to expand and contract, eventually leading to the collapse of the oldest pillars. Sacsayhuaman is a masterclass in megalithic engineering that predates modern machinery. Located on a steep hill overlooking Cusco, this Incan citadel features walls built from massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 125 tons. The precision of the stonework is so high that not even a single sheet of paper can be inserted between the joints. Unlike European masonry, the Incas used no mortar. Instead, they shaped the stones into irregular, interlocking polygons that allow the structure to flex during earthquakes. This seismic stability has allowed the fortress to survive for over 500 years, despite numerous tremors. Archaeologists estimate that it took 20,000 men nearly 70 years to complete the project, moving the stones from quarries several miles away, using only rollers, ropes, and brute force. The zigzag pattern of the walls is believed to represent the teeth of a puma, the sacred animal of the Incan capital. Hidden along the eastern shores of Crowley Lake are thousands of stone cylinders that look like the ruins of a Greek temple. For decades, these columns were buried under layers of volcanic ash, only revealed when the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power created the reservoir in 1941. Scientists from the University of California, Berkeley, determined that the columns were formed by convection. About 760,000 years ago, a massive volcanic eruption covered the area in hot ash. As groundwater seeped down through the ash, it turned into steam and rose through vertical vents. This process caused minerals to crystallize and harden into the pillars we see today. Some columns reach heights of 20 feet, or 6 meters, and feature horizontal bands that mark different cooling stages. The lake's waves continue to erode the surrounding soft pumice, exposing more of these geological pipes every year. Namib Desert, Namibia. The Namib Desert is 55 million years old, making it the oldest desert on the planet. At Sossusvlei, the sand dunes reach heights of over 1,000 feet, or 300 meters, their deep orange color coming from the oxidation of iron. Adjacent to these dunes is Dedvley, a white clay pan that was once a flourishing oasis. 900 years ago, a severe drought caused the Sorchab River to change course, cutting off the water supply. The camel thorn trees that lived there died, but they did not decay. The air is so dry and the sun so intense that the wood has been scorched black and mummified. They stand as skeletal monuments against the backdrop of the white clay and the orange dunes. The clay floor is cracked into geometric patterns, reflecting the final moments of a vanished wetland. This environment is so stable that these trees may remain standing for another 1,000 years. The most imposing dune in this sector is nicknamed Big Daddy, reaching a height of nearly 1,100 feet or 335 meters. Climbing to its summit reveals a perspective where the orange sand meets the Atlantic Ocean, a boundary known as the Skeleton Coast, where the desert literally swallows the sea. Chan Baori is one of the deepest and largest stepwells in the world, a geometric marvel built in the 9th century to combat the water scarcity of Rajasthan. It consists of 3,500 narrow steps arranged in perfect symmetry, descending 13 stories into the earth. The well reaches a depth of approximately 100 feet or 30 meters. At the bottom, the air remains 5 to 6 degrees Celsius cooler than at the surface, providing a sanctuary for the community during the height of the Indian summer. The architecture served both a practical and social purpose, acting as a reservoir for rainwater and a gathering place for locals. The intricate stone carvings on the surrounding walls depict Hindu deities and celestial beings, blending spiritual art with civil engineering. The precision of the masonry is such that the steps appear to shift and move when viewed from different angles, creating a hypnotic visual effect. The geometric precision of the well is so advanced that it produces a unique acoustic effect where sound does not echo, despite the massive stone volume. This architectural anomaly, combined with its surreal visual depth, led Hollywood directors to use the site as the filming location for the underground prison in the movie The Dark Knight Rises. During the summer months in Greenland, the Petermann Glacier develops a network of supraglacial streams known as the Blue River. This water is not coming from an external source. It is the result of melting ice. The river's sapphire color is caused by cryoconite, a dark dust composed of soot, rock particles, and microbes that settles on the glacier. Because the dust is dark, it absorbs more solar radiation, melting the ice beneath it and creating deep channels. The water is incredibly pure, containing almost zero sediment, which allows light to penetrate deeply and reflect back as intense blue. These rivers are a vital indicator of the Arctic's health, as the volume of meltwater increases annually due to rising global temperatures. The river eventually drains through moulins, or vertical shafts, carrying millions of gallons of water to the base of the glacier and accelerating its slide toward the ocean. In a small clearing in the chaparral forest, the ground undulates in 7 distinct colors: red, brown, violet, green, blue, purple, and yellow. These dunes were formed by the decomposition of basaltic lava into clay minerals. The primary reason the colors do not mix, even during heavy tropical rains, is the different cooling temperatures of the minerals. Iron and aluminum oxides repel each other, settling into separate layers. If you were to take a handful of the dirt and mix it together, the particles would eventually re-separate into their color-coded groups. The area is devoid of vegetation, as the high concentration of metals in the soil makes it toxic to most plant life. This site is a rare geological anomaly, representing one of the few places on Earth where volcanic activity has produced such a diverse and stable palette of natural pigments. Tanarine, Lebanon, the Batara Gorge waterfall, also known as the Cave of the Three Bridges, is a Jurassic limestone wonder. During the spring melt, water from Mount Lebanon drops 837 feet, or 255 meters, into a massive sinkhole. What makes this site unique are the three natural limestone bridges that span the chasm at different levels. The water falls behind these bridges, disappearing into a subterranean cavern that connects to a complex underground river system. The cave itself is over 160 million years old, carved by the continuous flow of snowmelt over the eons. The force of the water has smoothed the limestone walls into vertical flutes, creating a cathedral-like atmosphere. Explorers only mapped the full extent of the cave in the late 20th century, discovering that the water eventually emerges several miles away at a spring in the town of Magaret Al-Huwagia. The Hoh Rainforest on the Olympic Peninsula is one of the few remaining temperate rainforests in the Northern Hemisphere. It receives between 12 and 14 feet, or 3.6 to 4.2 meters, of rain every year. This moisture supports a massive biomass of epiphytes, which are plants that grow on other plants. Sitka spruce and western hemlock trees are draped in thick curtains of club moss and licorice ferns, creating a green muffled world where sound barely travels. The forest floor is dominated by nurse logs, fallen trees that provide a nutrient-rich environment for new seedlings to grow. As the nurse log decays, the new trees form straight lines, known as colonnades. This cycle of life and death has remained undisturbed for thousands of years, preserving a primordial atmosphere that feels disconnected from the modern world. The Kino and Hoh tribes have long considered this forest a sacred area, using the abundant cedar for tools and housing. Divers at Cenote Angelita encounter a phenomenon that seems to defy physics. An underwater river. At a depth of about 100 feet, or 30 meters, a thick, white cloud of hydrogen sulfide gas hovers in the water. This layer is created by decaying organic matter trapped between the fresh water above and the salt water below. This boundary is called a halocline. The cloud looks like a flowing river of mist, complete with fallen trees and leaves resting on its surface. To a diver passing through the cloud, the world turns pitch black for a few seconds before emerging into the clear saltwater realm beneath. The Maya believed cenotes were gateways to Xibalba, the underworld, and Angelita's eerie, stratified appearance reinforces this ancient mythology. The cenote is part of a massive network of flooded caves that stretches for hundreds of miles beneath the Yucatan jungle. Al-Balad, Saudi Arabia. Al-Balad, the historic district of Jeddah, was founded in the 7th century as a major port for Indian Ocean trade routes and the gateway for pilgrims traveling to Mecca. The architecture is unique to the Red Sea coast, featuring houses built from coral stone, harvested from nearby reefs. These buildings, some reaching 7 stories high, are adorned with intricate wooden lattice windows known as roshan. These windows were designed to allow sea breezes to cool the interior while maintaining the privacy of the residents. The wood was often imported from East Africa or India, highlighting Jeddah's role as a global trade hub. Many of these structures are over 500 years old, their coral walls standing strong against the humid, salt-heavy air. UNESCO designated the area a World Heritage Site in 2014, sparking a massive restoration project to preserve the labyrinthine alleys and ancient merchant houses. Mono Lake is an alkaline terminal lake, meaning it has no outlet to the ocean. Evaporation is the only way for water to leave, which has resulted in a salt concentration nearly 3 times higher than the Pacific Ocean. The most striking features of the lake are the tufa towers, jagged spires of limestone that rise from the water. These were formed underwater when calcium-rich springs bubbled up through the carbonate-heavy lake water. When the city of Los Angeles began diverting the lake's feeder streams in 1941, the water level dropped, exposing these towers to the air. The lake is an essential stop for millions of migratory birds who feed on the trillions of alkali flies and brine shrimp that thrive in the harsh water. In 2010, NASA researchers discovered a bacterium in the lake's sediment that could supposedly substitute arsenic for phosphorus in its DNA, sparking a global debate about the possibilities of extraterrestrial life. Across the island of Bohol, more than 1,200 symmetrical mounds rise from the jungle floor. Known as the Chocolate Hills, these formations consist of marine limestone that was uplifted by tectonic forces and subsequently eroded by rain and groundwater over millions of years. During the dry season, the green grass covering the hills turns a deep brown, giving them their namesake appearance. They range in height from 100 to 160 feet, or 30 to 50 meters. Local legends suggest the hills were formed by two feuding giants who threw rocks and sand at each other for days. Geologically, they are an example of cockpit karst, a terrain where the dissolution of limestone creates a series of rounded hills and sinkholes. Because the limestone is porous, the hills do not support large trees, which explains their smooth, uniform appearance. In the mountains of northern Japan, the winter winds transform the landscape into a field of white, towering figures. These are the Juhyo, or snow monsters. This phenomenon occurs when supercooled water droplets from the Siberian winds hit the branches of the Aomori fir trees. The water freezes instantly, creating a layer of rime ice. As the snow falls and is blown against the ice, it builds up into massive bulbous shapes that completely hide the trees. By mid-February, thousands of these monsters stand on the slopes of Mount Zhao, some reaching heights of 15 feet or 5 meters. The process requires a very specific set of conditions: consistent freezing winds, high moisture, and a specific type of evergreen tree. As night falls, the ski resort illuminates the monsters with colored lights, creating a surreal, neon-lit forest that feels like another dimension. Fingal's Cave, Isle of Staffa, Scotland. Fingal's Cave is a sea cave formed entirely from hexagonally joined basalt columns. This structure was created 60 million years ago by the same ancient lava flow that produced the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. As the lava cooled slowly, it contracted and cracked into perfect geometric shapes. The cave features a high, arched ceiling that acts as a natural resonator for the sounds of the crashing waves. In 1829, the composer Felix Mendelssohn visited the cave and was so moved by the acoustics that he wrote the Hebrides Overture. The cave's name comes from an epic poem by the 18th century Scots poet James Macpherson. Unlike most sea caves, which are rounded by erosion, Fingal's Cave maintains its sharp, architectural lines, looking more like a cathedral than a natural formation. In the heart of northern Spain lies a desert that looks like a fragment of the American Southwest. The Bardenas Reales is a 100,000-acre semi-desert composed of clay, chalk, and sandstone. The lack of vegetation and the rare but violent rainfall have carved the land into a series of plateaus and tabular hills known as cabezos. The most famous is Castil de Tierra, a thin, precarious pinnacle that serves as a symbol of the region. This area was once a borderland between the Christian and Muslim kingdoms, and its rugged terrain provided a perfect hideout for bandits and outlaws throughout the Middle Ages. Today, much of the area is a biosphere reserve, although the Spanish Air Force maintains a bombing range in one of the more remote sectors. The contrast between the lunar landscape and the nearby lush Pyrenees Mountains makes the Bardenas Reales a geological outlier in Europe. Beneath the rolling green hills of New Zealand's North Island lies a subterranean world illuminated by thousands of tiny lights. The Waitomo caves were formed over 30 million years ago from limestone composed of fossilized shells and coral. The stars of the cave are the Arachnocampa luminosa, a species of glowworm found only in New Zealand. These larvae hang from the cave ceiling, spinning long silken threads covered in sticky mucus to trap insects. They produce a blue-green bioluminescent light through a chemical reaction in their tails to attract prey. From a boat on the underground river, the ceiling looks like a clear night sky. The Maori people have known about the caves for centuries, but they were first systematically explored in 1887. The humidity and temperature inside the cave are strictly monitored to ensure the survival of the glowworms, as even a small change in air quality can cause them to stop glowing. These glowworms are highly sensitive to external stimuli. If a visitor speaks too loudly or shines a flashlight directly at the ceiling, the larvae will extinguish their lights instantly as a defense mechanism. This can plunge a tour boat into absolute suffocating darkness in less than 5 seconds, silencing the entire cavern. Shark Bay is home to the oldest living organisms on Earth, stromatolites. These are layered mounds of limestone formed by the growth of blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. The stromatolites at Hamlin Pool are roughly 3,000 years old, but they represent a lineage of life that dates back 3.5 billion years. For the first 2 billion years of Earth's history, these organisms were the only life forms on the planet, and they are responsible for producing the oxygen that made all subsequent life possible. The water in Hamlin Pool is twice as salty as the ocean, a result of a sandbar that restricts tidal flow and high evaporation rates. This extreme salinity prevents predators like snails from eating the bacteria, allowing the stromatolites to grow undisturbed. They increase in height by only 0.5 millimeters per year, making them a fragile and incredibly slow-moving record of biological history. Central Africa. The Congo Basin is the world's second-largest tropical rainforest, spanning over 1.3 million square miles, or 3.4 million square kilometers. It is often referred to as the Earth's second lung. The basin contains some of the most remote and unexplored wilderness on the planet, including the Cuvette Centrale, a massive peatland that stores 30 billion tons of carbon. This area is so dense that some parts have never been mapped by foot. The ecosystem is supported by the Congo River, the deepest river in the world, reaching depths of 720 feet, or 220 meters. The basin is home to over 10,000 species of plants and endangered wildlife like the forest elephant and the bonobo. For the indigenous tribes that live here, the forest is a source of everything from medicine to spiritual guidance. The sheer scale and biological complexity of the Congo Basin make it a critical component of the global climate system. Cetina River, Croatia. In the foothills of the Dinara Mountains in Croatia, the Cetina River begins at a spring that looks like a giant sapphire eye. Known as the Izvor Cetin, this karst spring is a vertical shaft that descends at least 500 feet or 150 meters into the earth. Divers have yet to reach the actual bottom. The water is a deep, piercing blue at the center, fading to turquoise and green at the edges where the limestone is shallower. The water temperature remains a constant 7 degrees Celsius year-round, regardless of the air temperature. This spring provides the water for the entire Cetina River, which flows for over 60 miles before reaching the Adriatic Sea. From the air, the spring's circular shape and varying depths create the perfect pupil and iris effect, earning its celestial nickname. Chemical analysis shows the water is so pure that it requires no filtration before being bottled for local consumption. The vertical cave system beneath the eye acts as a natural pressurized chamber, forcing water up from the deep aquifer with enough power to maintain a constant flow even during the driest European summers. The Transfagarasan is more than a road. It is a massive concrete scar across the Fagarash Mountains. Built in the early 1970s as a strategic military route by Nicolae Ceausescu, the road climbs to an altitude of 6,700 feet, or 2,042 meters. It requires 27 viaducts and 81 bridges to navigate the steep terrain. The construction was incredibly dangerous, using 6,000 tons of dynamite and resulting in the official deaths of 40 soldiers, though unofficial estimates are much higher. The road is only open from late June to October. As the rest of the year, it is buried under several feet of snow. The zigzagging hairpins and long tunnels have made it a destination for driving enthusiasts, but its origin remains a dark reminder of Romania's communist era and the human cost of conquering the mountains. The city of Torrevieja is home to two massive salt lakes, one of which is a vibrant bubblegum pink. This color is not the result of pollution. It is caused by the presence of Halobacterium, an ancient microorganism that thrives in high salt environments. The lake also contains Dunaliella salina, a microalgae that produces red pigments. Together, they transform the water into a surreal pink landscape. The lake serves as a major salt production site, yielding 700,000 tons of salt every year. The high salinity makes the water incredibly buoyant, similar to the Dead Sea. It is also a critical breeding ground for over 2,000 flamingos during the mating season, as they feed on the shrimp that ingest the pink algae. The intensity of the color changes depending on the time of day and the sunlight, often reaching its peak during the late afternoon. A reflection canyon is perhaps the most photographed yet least accessible spot in the American Southwest. Located in a remote arm of Lake Powell, reaching it requires a 20-mile or 32-kilometer round-trip trek over pathless desert sandstone. The canyon features a series of S-curves carved into the Navajo sandstone, which was once a massive dune field during the Jurassic period. When the water level of Lake Powell is at the right height, the canyon walls are perfectly reflected in the still blue water, creating a seamless transition between earth and sky. The rock itself is a deep orange, streaked with black manganese desert varnish. Because there are no marked trails or water sources along the route, it remains a dangerous undertaking for all but the most experienced hikers. The canyon's appearance changes drastically with the lake's water levels, sometimes revealing more of the ancient stone curves and other times submerging them entirely. In the middle of the Sahara Desert lies a giant concentric feature known as the Eye of the Sahara, or the Richat structure. It spans 25 miles, or 40 kilometers, in diameter and is so large that it was only fully recognized when humans began traveling into space. Initially, scientists believed it was an impact crater from a meteorite. However, further study revealed it to be a symmetrical uplift of igneous and sedimentary rock that has been deeply eroded. The center of the structure consists of a limestone dolomite shelf, while the outer rings are made of resistant quartzite. Some fringe theories have suggested the Richat structure is the site of the lost city of Atlantis, citing its circular shape and size as described by Plato. Geologically, it is a hydrothermal dome, formed by the movement of magma that never reached the surface but pushed the rock layers upward before they were worn away by the desert winds over millions of years. During the early Gemini and Apollo missions, American astronauts used this massive bullseye as a primary landmark to navigate their orbits. Because the Sahara is largely featureless from space, the Richat structure served as a natural lighthouse, providing a fixed coordinate for pilots traveling at 17,000 miles per hour. This planet does not need us to be magnificent, but we need it to understand the limits of imagination. In these 30 destinations, we have seen reality shatter and the impossible become solid stone. Which of these worlds has changed your definition of home? The journey into the unknown never truly ends,